you. We are live on Facebook, and I am here with Dr. Nancy Bryan, who I'm thrilled to have this conversation with today. My name is Kimmy, and we are excited to have this conversation about nutrigenomics and specifically related to diabetes. And Dr. Nancy Bryan, she is a doctor of pharmacology. She is a PharmD, a biochemist, a certified geriatric pharmacist formulator, a certified human and veterinary formulator, and a certified diabetic educator. Woo! And what I really appreciate about Dr. Bryan is she obviously has a resume, a very long resume, a lot of accolades, but she can also break down the science and explain why it's so important and relevant and exciting for us. And so I've had some incredible conversations with her that I always take away nuggets from. So thank you for that, Dr. Bryan.
Oh, thrilled to do it. Definitely.
Wonderful. Now, I have heard you refer to yourself as a backwards pharmacist before in conversations. Could you maybe break that down for us?
Absolutely. First of all, growing up, it was always in my heart, always passion for me in regard to taking care of people. Just from the time I was really young. And I do believe that, we each have our roles and we each have passions. And from an early age, that was just always something of interest to me. And so when I went into school, I actually thought from the beginning that I would become a physician and that would be my path. But there were some things that ended up happening that resulted in that being a different career path for me. I ended up going to pharmacy school. And when I had gone to pharmacy school, I already had my biochemistry background. And so going through pharmacy school, it didn't take me very long before I realized this, while I understood and loved what they were teaching us, I could tell that this was sort of not moving where I was wanting to go. There were two things that were really impactful for me, though. And the first was that in pharmacy school back then, we had a great big greenhouse. And one of my favorite classes was called pharmacognosy, where we learned plants and their role that they could have in medicinal purposes. Unfortunately, I don't believe much of that is being taught in pharmacy school anymore. But that was a really big passion for me because I've always thought of the body from a cell perspective. And going into pharmacy school, that was how I thought of it. And I just didn't feel when I got out of school that that was really where I was headed. So the first thing that I did was look to go to something toward research. And I found myself ending up being one of the first women that a pharmaceutical company hired to go into sales. And that was because it was for Eli Lilly, and they really focused on diabetes. So I really, really, really found right away my passion was in dealing with diabetics, mainly because so many of the things that were going wrong with them. And that brought me to a point where I ended up realizing already right from the get-go that there were a lot of medications happening in these patients when I was thinking of those plants and the things that could be done. And so from the get-go, I was really intent on helping people not be on too many medications. And from that point forward, it's kind of been my career path of taking people off medications and helping them understand what things they could do. Some of them nutrients, some of them were spiritual, some of them were excellent foods and exercise, all of those things. And so I always referred to myself as a backward pharmacist from a perspective of seeking other things other than medications if possible, and being able to get rid of some of those down the road once we knew some other options.
And so you also became, as part of that journey, you became a certified diabetic educator. Why did you choose to do that?
It was really important to me. Most pharmacists do not choose to do that because they're busy counseling the patients on how to take the medications and those sort of things. For me, the certified diabetic educator went deeper. We went to a point where there were so many other things that we could do to help diabetics. And so it was really important for me to take the understanding that I had in the cell and to help an individual understand that, because I think once people understand better, they have a bigger reason to follow what instructions and things you're going to help them with, other than here, take this pill. So to me, that was really important. I continue to keep my certified diabetic educator license secured, because more and more and more people today are diabetic or pre-diabetic. And I really feel that it's a huge problem that we have. So it's really important for me to be able to have that in my pocket as another tool.
Dr. Bryan, I'm really sorry. We just got word that we're not on Facebook anymore. I'm going to hop over there and figure out what that is. I know we have a few people watching here, and let me figure out what happened there, and then I'm very sorry, we'll have to get started again, if you don't mind.
That's all right. It all goes together.
Yes.
And the thing that I find with technology is it's forever challenging. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you are. It's always a challenge.
Okay, we're preparing that stream again.
I can't tell you I'll have the same answers. It's whatever just comes out.
I know there's a lot of people looking forward to hearing this.
I'm hearing my sound is very low as well. So I'm not sure why my sound is low. I'll try to get my microphone on as high as it can go. It may just be my voice. I will try to speak up. And Ray, if you could let me know how that is, that'd be great.
Thank you, Ray. And then I can edit out the beginning of this before we do the YouTube. Your patience with that, I definitely appreciate.
That's the thing best about Facebook. You just keep going.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, great. All right, well, let's restart this because I don't want anyone to miss this. It's too important, and when we repost this, everyone will have all access to the information. So again, welcome. Good morning, everybody. I'm very excited to introduce you to Dr. Nancy Bryan. She is a doctor of pharmacology with a PharmD, a biochemist, a certified geriatric formulator, a certified human and veterinary formulator, and a certified diabetic educator. And one of the things I really appreciate about her is even with this long list and this huge resume, she can really break down the science, and her passion for letting people know what this is. With her intense medical background, she is very, very passionate about letting people know about nutrigenomics, how this starts affecting our health, and why it's so important and why it's so ahead of medical world right now. We're just itching for more people to learn about this. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's awesome.
Well, and I've heard you refer to yourself before as a backwards pharmacist. Could you explain why you use that term?
Absolutely. So back to the beginning, when I went to school, I was always hoping I would end up being in the medical field. I was envisioning myself becoming a doctor, but due to some health issues and some other things that happened, I found myself after finishing my biochemistry degree in pharmacy school. While I was in pharmacy school, right away, I discovered that things weren't exactly what I was seeing myself doing. I didn't see myself counting pills by 5. I didn't see myself standing in a box. And it wasn't so much that, it was just that I've always had this deep feeling of helping people and passion for that. And so first thing first, I ended up right out of school going to work for a pharmaceutical company. I was one of the first females to be hired by a pharmaceutical company, Eli Lilly. Wow. They were really, really, really really deep in diabetes at that point in time, and that was a passion for me. And so I ended up going to work for them and learned a lot of things. But the most important part was the fact that I started recognizing right away that all the medications that were being given out to these people, that there were so many other answers. We learned some of them in pharmacy school. Pharmacy school had a greenhouse. Our greenhouse was full of plants, and we learned about those plants and their medicinal uses. And so I knew there were other things out there, and that started my quest early on of realizing I need to be able to help people to look at different alternatives beside prescriptions. Some of those were necessary. Diabetics needed that to stay alive. And so I kind of became the backward pharmacist early on.
Hmm. And then you decided to become a certified diabetic educator alongside that experience. Why was that?
Absolutely. Many of the certified diabetic educators are in nursing or in dietitians, but I found that I thought it was really helpful as a pharmacist, because what most of the time you're doing as a pharmacist is handing out the prescriptions and talking about side effects and interactions and those sorts of things. That's what you're mainly trained for. For me, because I had such a passion for the cell health, for learning about biochemistry and all the chemical reactions going on in the body, I was much more interested in helping people understand those parts, and in so doing, be able to help them deeply understand what diabetes was going to be. As a certified diabetic educator, you get a lot more into depth of what's going on with them and how important foods and nutrients and all those kinds of things are. And so to this day, I still am a certified diabetic educator because I find that's really important to have as a tool to help people.
And diabetes affects so many people. I know you were sharing some statistics with me last night about how prevalent it is, both diagnosed and undiagnosed, in all different types.
It is. It's unfortunate, but as time has gone on, what I've seen from the point in time that I became a pharmacist and then on with my education, what I've watched is the massive amount of numbers. And basically at this point in time, 70%, maybe greater, of our population is either pre-diabetic or diabetic. And so when you start talking about all the different health issues that are out there, many, many, many times it has to do with diabetes. More importantly, it has much more to do with the initial problems, which have to deal with our gut and then our cell health.
Hmm. And so could you explain this term of nutrigenomics? It's a very new term for most people.
Absolutely. Why I'm so passionate about helping people understand what nutrigenomics is because up until now, many people thought, okay, well, this is my gene path. My grandparents had diabetes. My great-grandparents had diabetes. You know what? I'm just going to have diabetes.
Right.
Because we thought that in our genes, that was set, with maybe the exception of about 2 to 5% being able to change. Today, we know much different. Today, we now know that 2 to 5% is what's set, and what we can change is all the rest. And so what nutrigenomics has to do with is utilizing nutrients and seeing the proper gene expression happen in our body, and the ability for those nutrients to help change, maybe not only from the perspective of not being as well to moving back toward wellness, but more importantly that I am so passionate about is understanding nutrigenomics so that maybe you never go there. Maybe that gene never does express.
How did this whole field, how did it catch your attention?
Well, along with all the other things that I like to do, I owned a business and it was very stressful. And in the process of all that, even though I was probably one of the healthiest people I knew, I always exercised, I ate well. I had a mother that really had all of those focuses early on when many others did not. So that was always something important to me. Somehow I still found myself in 2008 with breast cancer. And it turned out that I had a really naughty gene in my family that was one that expressed quite often with a lot of family members. And so once I went through my treatments and therapies and understood the significance of how crucial it was that I try to do the best I could, I stumbled upon a research at LSU, basically because I had then gone on to have a melanoma. when I had that melanoma, you know what? I'm going to be the first to admit, I'm as vain as the next person. Some of that skin cancer was showing up on my face, and I didn't want surgery. So a surfer, of all people, a really close friend of mine, surfer, who also had skin cancer, told me about this LSU study. And of course, I sort of rolled my eyes and was thinking, okay, what can this dude know about skin cancer that I don't already know, or that the research doesn't already know? Well, let me tell you what, thank God for him telling me. And I try to express that to people every day. Once they know this knowledge, please share it. Because you know what? I was getting things cut and burned off me every 3 months for 4 years. And when I saw this skin study about melanoma, it really caught my interest. And you know what? It went on to show in that study, not only that it was so helpful for the cancer with melanoma in these rodents, but it also was the gene expression that I actually had, my own personal gene expression, P53. And so while we always tell people, look, what we're talking about does not treat, mitigate, prevent, or cure. What we do know is that the body is capable of that. And so what that study demonstrated was something turning back on the good genes, turning off the bad genes, and actually seeing a difference in the rodents that were painted with toxins dying, or the rodents that received a specific product not dying, and actually having tremendous results. That just opened my eyes up to something that was very powerful. It also made me really mad, because I'm like, how do doctors know about this?
And why don't doctors know about this?
Well, science takes time. It really takes time. If you know anything about publishing studies, just first of all, just think about it. If we're trying to show, let's take, for instance, longevity, because I'd like to talk about that down a few minutes from now. But if we talk about longevity and what helps people stay alive, well, goodness sake, are we going to do a study that's 300 years long? That's going to be very difficult for people. So studies that have to take place in mammals and rodents first, that have a lot shorter lifespan, so we can learn about all of these studies, right? And as those studies happen, they take time themselves. It takes time to get them published. As they take time to be published, they have to be reviewed, scrutinized. And basically the bottom line is science is typically 10 to 15 years, maybe 20 years behind things that we find. And so that's why we're just now in the last 2 to 3 years seeing such a bigger focus on nutrigenomics, because up until now, they had not seen something be able to do what we're talking about.
And to have the peer-reviewed studies behind it that take years, as you mentioned. So that must have really caught your attention when you realized there was already a peer-reviewed study done with your gene mentioned.
Yes, it was. It was really amazing for me.
So as we're obviously going to focus on diabetes today, but you're a doctor of pharmacology, you're a pharmacist. NRF1, NRF2, we're going to talk more in depth about that, but who would you say should be taking this? I mean, if you could write a script for anybody to take this, who would take it?
Like, oh my gosh, but here's the thing. When we start talking about this NRF2, remember I talked about my basis is that cell biology, that cell chemistry that goes on in our body. That was such a huge passion for me. It still is. What we know is that there are 4 basic things that really keep our body being able to be in homeostasis. That's what we want. Because what we are is one big balanced chemical equation. If you ever had chemistry in high school, that's what you were taught. Balance the equation, right? The problem is everything that we do, and it doesn't matter if it's pharmaceuticals or even if it's vitamin C or vitamin E or supplements, they all kind of push certain pathways and activate one way, but they don't have the ability to go in the opposite direction. And so sometimes we see side effects. Sometimes we see effects that are maybe not a side effects per se as a negative, but we see other things that happen because nothing is stagnant by itself. They're all connected. So the main thing that when you start taking a look at our nucleus, and we know there's a pathway called NRF2, that pathway is the master regulator. That's what that operates what's going to happen with our body, be it inflammatory processes, fibrolytic processes, and cytoprotection, protecting yourself from cancers, from all the things, from damages. Our body has that ability to take care of all those things. That NRF2 pathway is what runs that. So now that we know that that's important, we also need to know that the cell has to have the energy. That energy is what drives what a cell is supposed to do. If it's a nerve cell, to operate as a nerve cell, it has to have the energy to do that. If it's a muscle cell, it needs to operate, it has to have the energy. And so we know that mitochondria that take food and oxygen and make energy, ATP, that needs to be present. So we need to have the NRF2 activation so the cell expresses the gene and knows what to do. And we have to have the true power of the cell so that it can actually do the work. And that pathway is called the NRF1. So for me, I don't know anyone that shouldn't take this, because this is something that, you know what, we're talking about a product line, a product activators that can actually help turn on these pathways. And now that we know that there's I can't even talk today, nutrients that can do this, it's really important for people to know and understand that it's going to optimally help your body to operate the best it can be. And in some cases, we've had our genes hijacked negatively. So they're doing negative things, like in diabetes. In some cases, we know our family has that history. Let's stay well. Let's keep that NRF2 activation going so that maybe we don't see those bad genes be hijacked and be expressed.
And that brings so much hope, because we don't have to wait for the genetic ball to drop, you know, and especially when you've seen other people in your family who have struggled with disease, passed on from disease, early age, to know that this affects every cell in the body, that affects every system in the body, every organ, every system.
Every system.
Oh. So how would this compare? Because people know about the term inflammation, and they know inflammation is bad, and so they say, well, I take an anti-inflammatory, so that's reducing inflammation in my body. How does that compare with what we're talking about?
Well, the difference is really simple. We're talking about an outside source. You know, maybe we're talking about ibuprofen or an aspirin, or even in some cases, people think in regard to vitamin C, some nutrients. The inflammatory process is a symptom. It's something trying to tell us, hey, there's a problem here. We don't have a balance. There's some issues going on, and I want you to know about it, so I'm going to be inflamed. That is a symptom. So just necessarily stopping the inflammatory process is not necessarily where you want to go, because while that may stop a pain associated with it, or it may stop a certain condition associated with it, the problem is what we want to do is get to the root cause of the inflammation so that the body stops signaling and creating the inflammation. And that can only happen from the inside. An anti-inflammatory pill on the outside is simply stopping that symptom so that maybe you're not having discomfort, or maybe you're not having certain things happen, but it's not getting to the root cause. The root cause is what we need to have. We need to have that homeostasis in the body, and then the inflammatory markers and the inflammatory process stops happening.
Inflammation is a symptom, because I think we've kind of looked at inflammation as being the root of so many problems, but it's not. It's just a symptom, and below that, cellular health.
It is, and I, you know what, it's not science fault. It's just up until recently, we've not had any other way to address some of these problems. And when you don't have a way to address those problems, we can't have people uncomfortable. We can't have people not functioning. Those were things that were really necessary. I always tell people, look, I'm not against medications. What I am against is not trying to seek further a better total wellness solution. And that's kind of where we're going now. That's where science is heading. We're seeing this movement, this nutrigenomics is being taught now early into some of the medical schools. We're seeing it with functional medicine. We're seeing doctors paying attention to it. They just never had other options before, and that's why they utilize those. And so it's kind of just trying to help people be educated about it.
Mm-hmm. So for a diabetic who would say that they are managing their diabetes well with healthy eating and exercise, their A1C numbers are, their doctor is happy with them, do they need NRF1 and NRF2? How does that?
Well, here's what I run into more often than not. First of all, you know what? We're creatures of habit. We're all busy. We all want the easiest, fastest way to get better, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? Sometimes that feels like, hey, just let me take this pill every day. It's going to keep my blood sugar in check. And you know what? This is the way to go. Why I ended up having this path of 30 some years become so frustrating was that those pills are only taking care of symptoms. Yes, they may appear to be keeping the diabetes under control, but they're not. All they're simply doing is trying to help certain pathways operate a certain way. And over time, they're going to end up needing more medications because they're going to stop working as well. And they're going to start seeing more and more of the side effects from those medications as time goes on. And so what you see over time is not only the number of medications go up, but you also start seeing a lot of the things that are associated with diabetes, cardiovascular disease. People kind of forget that's a huge thing for diabetics because their blood vessels start getting crunchy. And that makes cholesterol levels go up to try to fill the holes where the cracks start happening. Your brain does the same thing, and your nerves. So you start seeing neuropathies, and you start losing your eyesight. All of those things start being impacted, and those medications, while they may appear to be managing your diabetes, totally are not ultimately helping you with your wellness. And so what we're talking about is the ability for some of that to actually be improved upon again. More importantly, for people that aren't experiencing that yet, hopefully, maybe possibly not ever ending up going there because their own body is able to keep balanced and keeps from going in that direction and expressing those genes.
And how does this look differently for someone who's pre-diabetic, someone who's type 1, insulin dependent, or type 2?
Right, and there's differences. First of all, for type 1 diabetics, they do not have the ability to make insulin anymore. That is not going to change. But what does change is all of the other systems in our body that are trying to stay in balance with the utilization of insulin from outside of our body. So you're getting much higher swings in your blood control simply because of the nature of it, even with pumps. And so when you have NRF1 and NRF2 activation happening, you're going to ensure that systems, your liver, your brain, your blood vessels, all of those things are going to stay in a better place. Your body's keeping them well. So that's less work for your body, requiring less sugar, requiring less carbohydrates to actually operate. And so often what you'll see is if you can help someone to really maintain and get their body back into homeostasis as much as possible, that type 1 diabetic may actually see a decrease in the amount of insulin required. It definitely will make an impact in terms of whether or not they see illnesses as often. And most importantly, you're going to hope that that's going to lead down the road to them not developing some of the severe problems like kidney disease and neuropathy and those types of things. In type 2 diabetics, as I said before, the ultimate goal is, you know what, let's try to keep the medications at the minimum so that we're not dealing with some of the side effects that can ensue later. And more importantly, how our body is able to keep itself well through those NRF1 and NRF2 pathways means that, you know what, they're going to stay well longer and have a quality of life longer. And for pre-diabetes, oh my goodness, for people that have diabetes strongly in their family. The genes are very strong for it. This hopefully is their hope for them to maintain their health as long as possible. It's going to ensure that good genes are expressing. It's going to ensure that their cells are operating at the optimum that they're designed to. This is about the body optimizing what it can do, and that can be utilized through exercise and diet, of course. This is just one another tool, an important tool that gets to the root cause of what's going on in our bodies.
I mean, I think about a couple friends here, friends of mine, one in her mid-60s, and her doctor has now said she's no longer type 2 diabetic.
That's so amazing. And that's the thing, our bodies are amazing. I think the thing I get most excited about is when you have the ability for your body to start resuming the pathways that we're operating. And you know what? The NRF2 pathway is an interesting thing. Up until we're about 25, it operates perfectly. It does great. With the exception of some other gene mutations that may happen in younger children or whatnot, but the average person, up until 25, things are rolling along pretty well. You're healthy. And then after that, our bodies are designed to have that NRF2 pathway kind of back down a little bit. And we're supposed to be able to get everything through diet and exercise. The problem is oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is this big, ugly thing that lots of people are talking about today. And it comes in lots of forms in our body. Reactive oxygen species, that is what's happening. We're getting these pieces of trash in our blood vessels and in our cells. And what they do is they overwhelm our body's ability to take care of it and to get that out. So what happens is, as we start going along 25, 30, 35, 40, more and more of that oxidative stress is building up, and our body's not capable of keeping the balance. So now that homeostasis starts going away, that's when all these diseases happen, especially diabetes. And so what we want to do is make sure that we're giving our body the optimum ability through decreasing oxidative stress. And there's things that are capable of doing that today. In fact, there's certain things that are capable of doing it unbelievably well. And in that case, you want to optimize that. You want to take what that is and be able to see the optimum that your body can have by managing this oxidative stress and then allowing your body to work optimally.
And when we were talking about some pretty big topics such as cancer and diabetes, but when people reduce their oxidative stress, what does that look like day to day if they're already considerably healthy? Would they notice a difference?
Well, some people may not. It's just like when you have high blood pressure. Some people may feel certain things when they have high blood pressure. Some people don't feel anything. It's difficult to predict. But I can tell you that when your body's operating optimally, you have that sense of well-being. Your mind is clear. You're sleeping well. You cannot have an optimum health if you're not sleeping. That's when you repair. So if you're not sleeping at all, there's no possibility that you can be seeing your optimum health, no matter how much you exercise or eat right. You need to be able to have that sleep factor in there. You need to be able to have the ability for your brain to think and to have the chemical connections that can happen. That goes to say the same with your muscles. And so how you operate on a daily basis with your energy levels and how you're actually just feeling, kind of the resting state. I'll put it that way, our normal resting state. I think that when people really step back and take a look, when they have that operating optimally, they know when they don't have it. I can tell you that before I found my cancer, I knew I didn't have it. I was exercising, eating, doing all these things, and I'd get up in the morning and look in the mirror and go, I should feel better than this. And it was not specific. I wasn't hurting, but there was just this underlying feeling that just wasn't well-being. And I remember in pharmacy school, them teaching us a word called general malaise. And that's where you just don't feel all that great. Well, I never knew what general malaise was until I had it. And that's what that was. And I can tell you that today, I definitely don't have it. So for me, I'm just thrilled to be able to have my body optimizing how it's utilizing everything from foods that I eat to the nutrients that I take. And it really makes a huge difference in the quality of your life, because who cares how long you live if the quality of your life is not good?
Absolutely. So if somebody's taking other medications, what should they know about taking?
A lot of things will interfere with medications, and that's really an important question. The other thing is, a lot of people try to start listening to this person and that person, all different kinds of people, and they really don't have a real true understanding of the things they're taking can have a negative effect. For instance, I hear all the time, most of the time, one of the things I do often is I have a lot of friends bring me their parents' medication with their parents and go, oh, please help us. They're on 17 medications.
Yeah.
And they don't know what to do. That's the biggest problem. They go to each of the doctors and nobody wants to take them off if they're on. And then you sit them down, and then on top of it, they've got 5, 6, 10 different nutrients because maybe they went down the street to the naturopath. And so the thing that you have to understand is that those things can interact. So it's important that you are aware of the products that you take, because they can go into the liver and change how things are metabolized. They can go into the kidneys and change how things are metabolized. And that's because they're usually very high doses of things. I looked one day, one of my friends, her mom was on like 7 different nutritional things. Every one of them had about 300 to 500% of the daily requirements for vitamin C. She was on such massive doses of vitamin C, and she had no idea, because all those bottles added up. And she was wondering why she was feeling bad. She was adding so much more trash to her system, she couldn't even keep up. So you want to be able to take something, and that's one of the things that I love about talking about nutrigenomics. We do know that there are some products out there, and I do know for a fact that they do not interfere with medications because they're subtherapeutic doses. They're tiny amounts blended together to have an optimum huge effect, a huge synergy of effects. So you get the optimum with the effect of it, helping your body to optimize itself, but you don't get the side effects because it's those tiny little parts. That's the important thing to know. And so I would encourage people, if they're watching this, if they would like to know more information with regard to those types of things, that would be really helpful to get with the person that invited you, because there are some products out there that do not interfere, that can really optimize that NRF2 activation, optimize your mitochondrial health, and help your body have that homeostasis that it really wants to get back to the root of wellness.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Brian. Is there anything else that you want to add or that we missed that's relevant for this?
I just urge people to really, look into and be aware of things that are out there. But don't be afraid to believe that there are things out there that matter and can make a difference. That's where I've come to over the last 30 years. There was a point in time when I talked to people about probiotics after being in Brussels and being in Europe for a while. And I came back here and no one knew what a probiotic was. Now we have such incredible information. Kimmy, you and I know of one that works incredibly well, and I utilize it all the time because our gut health is the beginning of getting that homeostasis we talk about. But I urge people, you know what? Take a couple of minutes. You don't have to take a lifetime. You don't have to become a pharmacologist. You don't have to formulate. All you need to do is get with a few people that can help show you some of that information. And then, you know what? See if that's something that's going to make a difference for you.
I heard someone recently say, don't trust your health to Google. Know how to do good research.
Please go to pubmed.gov. Take a look. Look at NRF2 activation and diabetes. Look at NRF1 and diabetes at pubmed.gov. There's lots of studies out there now. Most importantly, I'm so thrilled there's more studies out there now because of a certain couple of products that we're familiar with that kind of kicked all that off. And now we're starting to see massive research in this area, and it's exciting. Time is changing in terms of how we're going to be looking at our health and wellness. And so definitely do not Google, because Google, you know what, anybody can put anything out there. And the majority of the time when you're clicking on it, you have to keep in mind that they're probably making money from that. So the big thing is go to where doctors and scientists go to try to find out the truth, to try to find out what peer doctors and researchers are saying, where it's been reviewed and where you can really take a look at ingredients and see what's happening.
Well, thank you. This has been wonderful, and I'm excited to watch it back because so many good nuggets, and I know there are so many people who are watching this. Diabetes is so prevalent, and so I'm excited for how this is going to educate so many more people. So thank you for your time, Dr. Bryan, and your
You're so welcome. You know, the biggest thing, you know what, that we just want to express to people is that there's hope.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Don't give up. There's hope. There's things out there that really can make a difference. And I'm so blessed because I get to see them every day, and it's really encouraging. I'm more encouraged today for diabetes than I was 30 years ago, which is awesome.
That is amazing, and a great note to end on, that there is hope. So, well, thank you very much, and we'll sign off here.
Thank you so much for having me. I just so appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.